Hi everyone. Thanks for being patient and waiting for me to make some new videos if you have been. I am trying to get some videos put up here soon. I know I still have some videos from last month that I planned on doing and didn't do. At the end of the month I did 2 readathons. I wanted to do wrap-ups for those. I was going to do what I read in the month of September. Honestly, everything is such a blur. I'd probably have to go to my Goodreads and see what I put in there, and hopefully I put in every book that I read and gave it a rating. I've been trying to get better about that, but I don't know if I'm going to get to all of it. I just want to keep moving forward. I do want to do quick little wrap-ups of the readathons though. The first readathon I did was the Underhyped books, which was a fun readathon. I really liked the idea of it. I probably would have liked to have read more, but it was still a lot of fun to do. I originally was going to read this series, which are books that I've had since I was a kid. They were written in the 60s, the 70s. The last one was written much later, but the first one was written in the 60s. And it starts with this book, Little Fuzzy. Honestly, this is the only one I did read. I did not get to the other two in the original series. And then I read this kind of rebooted version from John Scalzi. Still don't know if I'm saying that right. Which I hadn't heard of until a couple years ago. And it came out several years ago, 2011. But I did get to this. This was only 100 pages, something like that. It's a really cute book. If you like especially old school science fiction, I think it's a good little read. If you're more into stuff that's written nowadays, which is a lot different than books that were written in the 60s, you might not enjoy this. There's not a lot of action. Honestly, there's not a lot of plot. It's more kind of an introspective read. It gets you to think. It's kind of a book mostly about sentience and what makes someone human. They're talking about a alien race trying to decide if they are sentient, if they are, human-like to our standards, if they have the same cognition, feelings, the way their brains work. So if you like that kind of stuff, I would pick this up. The characters are a little flat. There's not too much depth to them. Definitely not a character-driven story. It's more about these aliens than the humans that are in the book. At the end, they actually, they have this weird little romance, not even with the main character, with two little side characters that's random and kind of thrown in. I didn't really like that. But otherwise, I do enjoy this book. I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as when I first read it when I was younger. And I think that has a lot to do with the type of books that I read now, that are huge, massive. I read a lot of epic fantasies, and it has so much world building and complicated plots and twists and really complex characters that have layers upon layers. So it's definitely a different kind of read, but I liked it. And then I read the reboot. He was the author here, John Scalzi. He's a real big fan of that original series, but he had his own idea of what he would like to do with this world and kind of flesh it out. And so he wrote his own book simply based on the first one, not the full series. And I loved this book. I loved it so much, I actually want to pick up more books by this author. I've never read anything by him. But I love his voice. He kept true to the original story, but he added so much to it. The plot was so much better. There's so much going on. There are little things that you'll be surprised about. The characters, a lot of the characters are different. The main character is similar to the main character in the other book, but even he's different. He's kind of a jerk, actually, the main character, which I like. I like reading stories that where you're not always going to like the main character. You're not always going to like relate to him or her. And he definitely had a lot of flaws. He had a lot of bad characteristics. But I actually really enjoyed that, and I think it made it even more enjoyable, more interesting to read, because you kind of wondered what his motives were. In the original series, you knew the main character, what his motives were. He believed in these creatures. He believed that they were sentient, that they deserved to have rights. The main character in this, he starts out thinking they're just stupid animals, or, you know, trainable animals. They have these cute little tricks, and it's actually somebody else, his ex-girlfriend, who gets involved, and she's the one that first believes that they are more than what they appear to be, and they end up kind of working together. And this is not a romance, so if you don't like romances, don't get thrown by that. It is not at all a romance, but the characters were very intriguing. A lot of characters you're not gonna like, but it was a lot of fun to read. I literally laughed out loud at several scenes in this book. He has such a great voice. He really pulls you into his story, wants to make you keep turning that page. This was a really, really good read. And they also still really get into making you think about what makes us human. And I'm not sure if the author kind of intended that, you know, with either of these books, but it kind of makes me think of, you know, race relations. And, you know, when Europeans first came to America, how did they treat Native Americans? They thought they were savages. They weren't human in their eyes. They were less than. They weren't important. You know, that they didn't have any rights to this land. They didn't deserve anything. And that was the way that they were treated. Same thing when slaves were brought over here. They were animals. They were not human. They had no feelings, no thoughts. They didn't deserve anything. And it actually kind of made me think about that when I was reading, especially this book. You know, just because they look different than us, maybe they act different, doesn't mean that they aren't sentient, that they aren't empathetic, that they don't have feelings. They discuss theory of mind, if you know anything about that, in this book. To kind of summarize, you know how your mind works. You can kind of look inside yourself, hear your thoughts. You know that it exists because you can focus inward. You know, you can't read other people's minds, as far as I know. So you're just kind of assuming that other people think the way that you do. You know, their mind works in a similar fashion, that they feel the same way that you do. But it's purely speculation. There's no way of really knowing. You can talk to people, but you cannot go inside somebody's mind and see how it works. And that's brought up several times in this book, and it really relates to them trying to prove or disprove if these creatures are sentient, if they are human enough to be given rights. So it really, really makes you think. And I finished this up actually right before Diversathon. So I found that very interesting. This is not technically a diverse book, but the way it had me thinking in my mind going kind of put me in a good place, I think, to start Diversathon. So I would highly, highly recommend this. I definitely want to pick up more of his books. If anybody's read any of his books, let me know like what I should read next. I don't even know how many books he has out. If it really says, it doesn't really say in the back like what else he's read or written, but I'm pretty sure he has written other books. So I'm gonna have to check that out because I know the name sounds familiar. So that was my I am drawing a blank. That was my Underhyped readathon, the books that I read. Not a lot, but it kind of motivated me to read something different, and I appreciate that. That's one of the things I'm always looking for is different types of books. And you know, if I hadn't looked through my books that I had at home trying to find something for this readathon, I might not have picked up these books that I read so long ago, and I wouldn't have. I think I just did a search to find out more about the author or something when I found the reboot, and I never would have heard about that, I think. So I love finding new books, and if anybody ever has any recommendations, you know, if there's books that you like that are maybe underhyped that you don't think a lot of people have read or even know about, please list those down below. I would love to check them out, and I will catch you in my next video. Thanks. Bye.